1, 2, 3. Everything's good. Has everybody got a ear? That's marvelous. Look at this. Okay, everything's great.
Ready to go?
Okay.
Just give me 2 seconds. Go on the table.
How far can I come in here?
Where back a touch. There. Back a touch more on that. Sorry. That's it, right. Yeah.
Ready to go?
Okay, yeah.
Rolling then?
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you first meet Alex?
There was a time in my life that I recognized very few things except one of the observations that Oscar Wilde made. And he said that a man should either feed you, amuse you, or shock you. And there is another friend of mine who runs a restaurant, a very posh restaurant called Harvey's near some common. And he's got that in the front of his menu. And I think that if I had to talk of purpose about Alex Higgins, it would be that he does one of the three. He certainly amuses me, and he certainly entertains me. I remember him cooking a soup once down in a farmhouse that I had down in Surrey. And he was cooking pea soup with ham in it because he had this great sense of sentimentality that a lot of the Irish have. And so was trying to copy his grandmother or grandfather's cooking. I think that he made the mistake. I'm not sure that the grandparents made the mistake. But then, having known Alex for as much as I did, I met Alex. I bought this big, huge house down on the Surrey-Sussex borders years ago, and it was owned by the White Fathers of Africa. And previous to them ever arriving there, the Canadian Army were there. And I bought it for what was a very cheap price in those days, and then spent whatever I was allowed to have in my pocket. My brother's my manager, and Alex would know about this. So I spent a fortune. And all of a sudden, Desi, a mad Irish cab driver who had been working out, and I think probably his wife was being courted by Alex Higgins, turned up. And I saw what I assumed to be this huge, great wine bar walking down the corridor, doing this at 108 miles an hour with this huge, great papier-mâché covered wine bottle. He then stuck it on my new snooker table and then began to fire balls into it in all sorts of different directions, or from different directions. And I watched him for a bit, and I used to live in this, we could never get the bedrooms right. And so I lived in the billiard room for 7 years. And then eventually, once we got all the bedrooms right, we moved upstairs, and then we bought a billiard table into the billiard room. And then Alex appeared. And I didn't know him from Adam. I mean, 15, 16, 17 years ago, the cover of television wasn't as purposeful as it is nowadays. So nobody made a tiddlywink into a champion. And the little yobs like Davis and White and Higgins and the rest of those choppers from Canada, they're not big enough to chop down a fucking tree, suddenly turned up, and they made very cheap visual television. And so these anti-heroes became popular. And amongst those, like a great white thrush through the burnous bush, came Higgins, who was not opposed to anything that delighted him, in exactly the same way that art is not opposed to that which delights the painter, whether or not you put on vermilion blue or alabaster brown or yellow or green. You build a montage of color, and that is what Higgins has done in his life. Beyond that is a mere pink.
Is that what attracts you?
I haven't finished yet.
Beg your pardon.
Don't interrupt me. Do you remember I told you this? You've got to wait till somebody finishes. Otherwise the editor can't cut across.
Okay.
And you'll learn that with experience. And so what happened then, I developed an obscure friendship with this fellow that was based upon his lunacy. Based upon the very first observation of wild. You've got to shock them, amuse them, or feed them. Now your turn.
Okay. When you first met him, had you heard of him before? You'd heard of him from watching
No.
the TV, sir?
When I first met Alex, and having seen him come down with this huge, great vase of which all the coloured balls went in, I suddenly started thinking of The Hustler. And I was thinking of Paul Newman and the other fellow that I worked on once, and Sting too, I've forgotten his name. And I suddenly thought, wow, I could make this little jumping cuckoo monk a lot of money, but didn't know him 17 years ago because nobody had seen him, let alone me. I was interested in crumpet in those days, not neurotic jumping balls. And so I said to him after this, when he gave me 26 black start, and I don't think I even scored one, and he won, we gamed for £20, which to me is a fortune, especially when I don't game upon things which I do not have the skill about. Then that was it. So afterwards, we went into the study and had a few whiskies, and said to him, do you know, I could make you a lot of money. And Hurricane, being Hurricane, said, how? Because he's such a mean bastard. He really is a mean bastard. Except that he gave me an overcoat for my birthday last year in Dublin, this year in Dublin, and a box of chocolates. And I'm sure that he got the overcoat off a very great friend of his who supplies all his clothes in Dublin. I wished I could give him the opportunity. I think that probably within the nature of this program or this video, you'll tell him. But who was very sweet. So Alex probably got it off, and he probably got one of his birds to pay for the box of chocolates, which incidentally made me sick. And anyway, after Hurricane had left the table, I said we could make a lot of money. And he said, but people will recognize me. And I thought, there is the rub. Because I didn't know, but I could tell for that small moment. And so I immediately whipped off the wall a silk print of two fellows in periwigs playing a form of billiards in France and shading it from the shadow. And I thought, there is somebody that I must believe in. And then after that, I have. And then after that, then everything has become so much alive for his idiocy. And so when I find people trying to destruct him, I find that unsavory. And I find, therefore, I'll suddenly hop off my bike and go up the coupe and find out, you know, who's got the handlebars on and who's, you know, chained it up. And so I've done that every now and then to say, listen, get out of Sod's Eye and come over and stay with me for a bit. Assuming, idealistically, that that would be an opportunity that I would never deny myself again, except that it becomes a great sense of the bizarre. Do you understand?
I do. You're talking about some of his enemies in the press who find him as fair game. And you've offered him a sanctuary from that from time to time, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel about this press coverage? Because he's a man in the public eye, isn't he? So maybe in some way he deserves to be